I've been thinking, how do the laws get found when they don't know where to go? And I've been shaking, not many more twists and turns before I find the road. And I've been hoping for sunrise.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Purpose Podcast with Dr. Jazz, where we journey to purpose together. And as you all know, this is season 4 of the Purpose Podcast. I cannot believe it. And we just got done with our college students and talking to them about their purpose and how they got there through their college. And now we're moving on to something else. So I have with me today Miss Marcy. How are you?
I am so excited to spend time with you. This is so good. I'm like, this can go real slow. I just love spending time with your energy. It's
Oh,
amazing.
and I'm so glad to have you here. So I'm gonna read your bio and then I'm gonna tell you what's been going on in my life
I
after
want to
our last
know. I'm on the
conversation,
edge of my
and then we're gonna
seat.
get into the podcast.
Yes.
Because like y'all don't know, I'm gonna read her bio and then I'm gonna tell y'all this lady started the transformation of my life, low key, high key. Okay, so let me
Woo,
let
that's a
me.
lot to say.
No,
Okay, I'm very
I'm being
intrigued.
so serious. I'm being so serious.
Woo.
Okay. Also, I should have asked this off camera, and this is very embarrassing, and I'm going to keep it in the recording. Your
Cool.
last name is Bursac.
Right. And then it
Oh,
gets
cool.
confusing because you're like, is it really that simple? I think it's Serbian and it means like pouch or purse.
Okay. Like a sack. I got
Mm-hmm.
it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So act like I didn't ask her that, and I asked her that before I started
Cool.
recording, guys.
And
Okay.
isn't that polite though? Like instead of, running with like,
The lady. Okay, so let me read her bio, then I'll have to tell you our story. Okay. Scaling her lived experience as an adoptive mom of a sibling pair, Marcy Bursac advocates for more than 100,000 children in the U.S. foster care system that are waiting to be adopted through her free app, children's book, how-to book, book of real life stories, monthly podcasts, speaking engagements, and TV, radio, magazine, and podcast appearances. Marcy was interviewed and announced the winner of the Pilot Pen G2 Overachievers Grant on the Kelly Clarkson Show on October 26, 2023. She is a recipient of the Angels in Adoption Award from the Congressional Coalition on Adoption Institute from Missouri with Senator Blunt, and she was crowned United States of America Mrs. Ohio 2022. She founded the organization, The Forgotten Adoption Option, and she is the creator of the Foster Care Adoption Awareness Reading Program. So I read this before. I don't think I digested it before. That is so cool. You're cool.
well,
Where is
thanks.
your episode of Kelly? Like, can we Google it? The
Yeah, you
episode?
can Google and find it on YouTube. Yeah. The writer's strike, like I got a call March, April, because my husband hand wrote like a 12-page nomination.
Oh,
His
wow.
grandfather was orphaned and never adopted. So the work that
Wow.
I do with helping children who are in foster care get adopted is very, very dear and dear to hearts. I'm literally, they had told me, you're gonna have the Kelly Clarkson show, but you can't tell anyone, like send us NDA. And then we booked everything. And it was in May. I was finishing my MBA. I was the speaker at graduation. My reading program was launching, and I was like, "We're making this work. Like, you don't get a call every day to
Yeah.
play Clarkson show. Like, it's just gonna be fine. Like, I'm gonna get no sleep. I'm gonna go on stage, and we're gonna make it work." And I check into my flight. An hour later, they said, there's the writer's strike. We have to cancel everything."
Oh,
So it's pretty wild.
wow.
But I spent the summer writing my newest book, What to Know When You Adopt Through Foster Care. And with the timing of how God does things, I had it done and it came out right as I went on. When she switched her studio, she used to be in LA, and I got to
Uh-huh.
go to the studio in New York.
Well, that's cool.
And they surprised me. So the G2 Overachiever grant, they gave me $100,000 to continue to do the work that I
Oh,
do. They seek someone that's doing
wow.
like a day job plus something for the community, and they name it after their ballpoint, their awesome gel pen.
Yeah.
Ballpoint, their gel G2 pen. So if you write the G2, you can think of me. It's like the
I
longest lasting gel pen.
I
Mm-hmm.
will now. That is so
Mm-hmm.
cool. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Amazing. An amazing
Okay.
opportunity.
So let me tell you how you started the change of my life.
Do tell.
So I did a presentation. For those of you all who know, I think y'all know through our podcast already that I own Prosper Projects, a personal project management company. I help people achieve their dreams, ideas, and goals through time management and goal setting. Okay, so I did this presentation to this group of social entrepreneurs, and Marcy was there.
And it was this really cool space. It was like a CloLab space.
Yeah,
it was
really
super
cool.
artsy. Like that, the vibe has, I mean, there's this couch. Like you and I are eating lunch, there's a couch.
Yeah, it was really, really dope. Like, I want to be cool enough to actually work at those spaces.
Yeah. Just so people know.
Yeah. And we were sitting on the couch eating lunch. And like, I don't even remember how we started this conversation. But when I tell you, Marcy made me dig deep, she was like, there's something there. I don't know what it is, but there's something there. And I will be honest and say, I don't know what's there. I haven't figured out what the thing is, but what the core of it is. But I've been working on the outpour of it. So recently I told Marcy before we got on here that God has been showing me myself. And one of the things that I remember telling Marcy is that I don't like being put on a pedestal. Do you remember me saying that?
I
do not like being put on a pedestal. And what I realized is it's a vote. This is a real deep, we ain't even got to Marcy, but I realized it's actually a vulnerable. Yeah, me too, actually, with other people.
Yes.
It's a vulnerability issue. So recently, God has been like, he's actually been telling me this for years. He's been like, you need to wear your contacts more. I didn't even realize that my glasses were a security blanket. I've been wearing glasses since kindergarten. Okay, pray for my vision. That's another conversation for another day. I've been wearing glasses since kindergarten. So he's been peeling back these layers of like, you're going to be up front, whether you're uncomfortable or not. And that freaks me out. And so recently I have just been coming to terms with what it means. And I don't have any problem, like what I did there, I don't have any problem giving a presentation. It's always the after. I said in my perfect world, I would go do what God has told me to do and go home. Like I wouldn't talk to anybody. I wouldn't do any debriefing. I would just be like, this is what the Lord told me to tell y'all, and go like sit in the back and go home, right? And that's just not what he's called me to do. And that conversation, I finally connected it to what he's been saying now of like, no, you're going to be a friend. You're going to have to talk to people, and it is what it is. And like the daily videos that I was sharing with you that I do, when he first told me to do those, of course I fought it because I was like, why would I want to do that? You know, like that puts me up front. Now people assume they know me. Like I say that, like, you don't know me just because I share 2 minutes of my life, of my 24-hour life, right? It's a whole thing. Anyway, I'm rambling, but just know that conversation has brought to light so many different things that I am now working through. So thank you.
Which is amazing. And I think it's so interesting too, because how many times are we told, and this is even my story, like, go do this. And you're like, I've never done that before. I don't want, like, that's not the first, like 10 things I'd want to do. Like what? And it's just that obedience of like, okay, but I'm supposed to. And so I guess, you know, I'll figure out how and what, and it's, I think we can feel crazy at times.
I feel really
we hear
crazy.
that voice, right? But at the same time, you're like, I know that that's what I'm being asked to do. And all I'm being asked to do is to say yes.
Yep. And saying yes to, because the problem is never being out front, it's the aftermath. So saying yes to the aftermath. Oh, I'm gonna tell you a testimony, which I think I've shared on a podcast, but I'm gonna share it again.
Do it.
I remember I was giving a luncheon speech, and the Lord, I remember what episode I shared on, but I'm sharing it. And the Lord was like, okay, after you need to give out your books. I knew exactly what he meant by that. He meant I sit down and I give people books and I write in them and I talk to them. I did not do that.
Yes.
What I did was I stood up and I pointed and I said, hey, y'all see that box back there? Y'all can go get those books. And the one, disobedience, but two, not everybody got a book because people were grabbing like 4 and 5 and 6. That was not, and it was all because I didn't want to talk to people. Isn't that crazy? But I'm better than that.
It's a lesson. It's a lesson, right?
Yeah.
That it's like you could see that like you were told and you knew how, and you said, well, I'll do it this way. I mean, it's all over the Bible, right? Like, Abram, you and Sarah are gonna have a baby. No, we're too old. I'll fix this guy.
Yeah.
You know.
And then we got Ishmael. Yep. That's so yeah, a lot of issues. So Thank you for our couch conversation.
I love
It
that. I love
really,
deep. It's just, I think there's so much to life that's beyond such surface, right? Like
yep,
I love that we got to connect in that way.
yep. And I'm
We had some
glad
sort
that
of
you're
good
on the
chips in our
podcast.
lunch. I remember there being sort of a crunchy thing to
Yeah,
whatever we were eating.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And even anyway, that was a good lunch. Thank you,
It
Marcy.
was.
And
It was.
now
You're
you are
welcome.
here on the podcast.
I'm
So
delighted to be
I'm
here.
excited about this episode. I know it's gonna be good. So y'all are in
Mm.
for a treat. Okay. So
Mm.
enough of my long intro about me because that's not what we're here for. Marcy, the first question I always ask is what does purpose mean to you? So if you had to define purpose, what would you say?
Yeah. So synonymous or not, you might disagree. Some might disagree on this. I think of the word purpose and intentionality pretty similar. Because if you said, okay, well, what's like your purpose? I think it's so situational. Like I could tell you in my younger years, like, oh, I became a Christian before high school. And part of my purpose in high school was to start this Christian club. I'm not in high school anymore and I'm not leading the Christian club anymore. But in that season, that was where I was being used and being called. And so to me, a lot of it is like being intentional, knowing kind of your why, and that could change by the hour or the day. I think when you had mentioned that I was in the pageantry space as USOA Mrs. Ohio, and that like I had never pageanted. I did not know how to walk in 5-inch heels. And I was so grateful that I was talking to the pageant director because I told my husband when I wanted to enter. And then when they called to let me know all the details, I'm on the phone, thankfully not on like a Zoom, being told about the swimsuit competition. And I'm thinking, that is not the vision. That is what God, like, seriously? Like, seriously, like, when are you ever walking around in a swimsuit and some heels?
And
right?
heels,
Like,
yeah.
you don't. But I was being asked to do that. And it was like, but the Holy Spirit told me to do, I don't understand God, right? But then you look at the Bible and there's characters like Esther, right? That she was beautified and went through this whole process because, right, the purpose in that was to save her people, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, if I were to find purpose, I think it's about like, what is your mission or how can you be intentional in this space so that you can be of value?
That is, I like that definition. It's not my definition.
So I said, everyone's
not
not going to agree with me. Yeah.
And it's not what I go, like, it's not even it doesn't even hit the radar of what I would go to be honest, but I like it because also in this Jasmine going to be in the front, blah, 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 this space, I'm also very sure of what I'm put on earth to do. And that looks different no matter where I am, but I'm intentional about it. So I like this definition, Marcy.
And this is coming out of like, I have a hybrid life. Like I spent time going, okay, God, am I supposed to do nonprofit work full time? You've called me to start this thing. Okay. But then you also called me to start learning technical skills so I could career pivot and have a schedule aligned with my kids. And so I was like, which one? And I've landed in yes, like both.
Right, both.
And so I live in these two different worlds that collide that really well, they complement each other. And at work, I'm told, Marcy, keep asking your coworkers to help you with these things. Please encourage them and learn their skills. And I'm like, what? And then it's an amazing thing to be able to do it like this. So I think that's why I see it very interwoven and connected, not like, oh, my purpose is only when I'm here and there, but otherwise I'm living my life. Right.
Yeah.
Like, no, my purpose is like all of these things.
And learning that I'm one being. That is what I've been telling people. Like, no, I'm this person and intentional about being this person no matter where I am.
Yes.
And that's what I'm picking up from your that's Marcia, that's good. We can end the podcast now. No, that's that like I just never thought about it in that like the Holy Spirit called me to do a pageant or God or whatever.
I was laying in bed. I had packed for a vacation to Kentucky. I'm exhausted, right? Like you got your family ready, all this stuff, going to bed. And my head's on the pillow. My eyes are shut. And the Holy Spirit says, go Google pageantry. And I'm laying there and I was like, I don't know what just happened in my brain, but that I'm going to bed.
Yeah.
And it did it again. And I was like, I don't know who you're talking to, but I am tired. Yeah. And then it was like, it will take you 15 minutes, Marcy, just do 15 minutes. And I was like, begrudgingly I look, and I'm a very economical person. I like to be very simple. I like bargains. And I go online and they had just gotten a new director and they were waiving pageant fees. And so it was like, this is not funny because I can't like say no because it's too expensive. Like,
yeah, that is so cool. And you didn't even have to.
Wild.
But I also think it's interesting because, like, according to your definition about like being intentional,
Yeah.
when I met you, we were talking about adoption and foster.
Yeah.
So the fact that the pageant to you, right, seamlessly goes in because you're also a mom and you also have a husband and you have, you know, a job.
Mhm.
And that's a thing about what I'm learning about the things that God has called us to do that seem random. They always fit.
They do.
They
do.
always,
but it seems so out of the box. Like for me, it was so out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
I didn't know I didn't know how to do this stuff. But what happened is within maybe it was like a week or two of time, my husband knows, he was very supportive. And there was like an afternoon where I needed to fill out some paperwork. I was done with work early, which like never happens. My kids are outside playing. And he was like, I got dinner. You just fill out the form. And I'm like, why are you okay with this? And then I tell my kids and I feel totally weird to tell them because it's like, I have never done this before. And they were like, Mom, that's cool. And so then it's like a Saturday and I'm like, okay, it's time to go public. It's time to like social media this because like, I got to do this.
Yeah.
And I kid you not, within about 5-10 minutes, a woman that owns this national jewelry company that they're like home parties and things.
Mhm.
I'd met her years ago in my prior career. I get a message from her saying, I am so excited for you. By the way, I used to be a judge for our state pageant and I would like to be your jewelry sponsor. And I was like, what's a jewelry sponsor? Why do I need this? Like, I didn't know.
Yeah.
But like, she took me under her wing and like, I learned, like, she explained to me, you bring these like good luck gifts. And I was like, what are those? And she's like, oh, you need to bring like a gift for every single other contestant. And I got you. You just tell me how many girls there are and like what you want. And I'm like, okay. So like,
I did not know anything about this.
I did not.
That's so cool.
But when I showed up at nationals, I had shipped to a coworker that lived near Vegas because that's where nationals were.
Yeah.
And I had my, you know, every state was there. So I had my 50 necklaces. They all had each state name on it. Like I looked put together all because my girlfriend was all like, I can teach you these things. And I'm like, okay, I'm eager to learn because I just know God's called me to do this. And I don't actually have any idea how, you know.
Yeah.
And it all fell together. I mean, I crowdfunded really rapidly, really fast. I had like $10,000 to get pageant coaching and my wardrobe. And like people were just, they understood because they were like, we know you're why, Marcy, you're doing this. Because the whole thing was like, I want to take something positive and rebrand kids in foster care because they're not looked at as like the first choice, to put it really candidly, right? We don't think of these kids as like, that's who I want first. But yet for me, that was my plan A for adoption. And people look at me weird, like, why would you pick those kids? And I'm like, why wouldn't? Like, I get where they're coming from, but at the same time, like, we can fix this. Like, we can fix this by putting it somewhere positive. And I think that's where the Holy Spirit was like, you wanted something positive and you wanted a spotlight. I'm going to give you pageantry because you got glitter,
so cool.
You got sequins, and you got a spotlight. So go. And so I was like, well, my why is I'm going to use my voice to speak on behalf of these kids. And so that's what I did the whole time. And so as my pageant coach was like, okay, you know, March, there's one crown, one national crown. So, you know, only one woman gets to take it home. Do you think you could set a goal for yourself that might not be that thing? Because only one gets it.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'll aim for people's choice because I feel like I'm very equipped and could mobilize that.
Yeah.
And I set this crazy record. I had like 7,000 people, like 7,000 votes. I was able to make a donation to the Dave Thomas Foundation, which is like the founder of Wendy's, help support workers, to help the kids who've been waiting the longest. So like I learned so much in that space. I'm not doing it ever again unless like the Holy Spirit's very clear, but like I had this incredible opportunity. And then what's crazy, I told you I just finished my MBA and I was taking a semester of college a year. I did a 5-year MBA, which is kind of unheard of, but I had money from an employer and the program told me I had 5 years to finish. And so I was like, what I can do as a mom is I can shift for a semester and do coursework and shift back out for 8 months and not be a student and then do it again.
Yeah.
You know, you do a lot of imposter syndrome over time, like, can I do this again? And you just do it. But what happened is pageant nationals were during a semester of class. And so I was like, okay, I'll work ahead. I'll communicate with my professors. It's going to be fine. And I did. And like, they were I went to a really, really great school. They were like, Marcy, if you need more time, you just tell us. Like, we wish you the best, you know? And I was like, okay, kind of expecting a little more pressure. Thanks a lot. But I had worked ahead because it was like an 8-week course. that I was finished my class early so that when I came back from nationals, just in case I won the crown, I wanted time to like, I don't know what media engagements might exist or whatever. So I had worked ahead to have that margin. And when I came home, I didn't have that crown, but I had the time. So all of a sudden it became, you never get the gift of time. Like you never get that gift. And I was like, I cannot like steward this poorly because this doesn't come back. Right. And so I was like, what's the thing I've always wanted to do that I could like do this week? And I had a children's book. There's a sweet, sweet book called Are You My Mother? It looks like a Dr. Seuss book, but it's actually written by this guy with the last name of Eastman. It's this little bitty bird and its mom goes off to get breakfast. Yeah. And it asks like everything. It asks the cow, it asks the construction. It wants to know who its mom is. And I had read it to my kids and thought somebody should take this and put it into a children's book, like about kids in foster care. And I have played with this book for multiple years and it didn't end well. Cause I was like, if you have to paint the environment as an illustrator, I don't want these kids, I just don't want you to pity them. Right. Like I want you to see the opportunity. I want you to see the hope. I want you to see that they're valued and to truly believe it. And so it never really transpired. So that week I thought one thing I could do to move that forward is I will get a bunch of children's books that I loved reading my kids and I'll go on Amazon and I'll order like the clinical ones I've seen in the play therapist office. And I'm going to sit with them and just try to like learn. And that will be my goal. And in the middle of that, I'm sitting on my bed, this fuzzy gray blanket. I am frustrated because some of the books, the artwork was pretty terrible. The content was intentionally sweet, but the artwork sucked. So it was like, you did it really well, but like, it's not going to sell. And then the other ones that were amazing, I thought, well, why isn't this one about this topic? This is so confusing. So I'm turning the page and I'm telling my husband, I'm so frustrated. Somebody needs to. And I'm turning the pages and the words of the book are coming out of my mouth. Wow. Because the Bible tells us out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is happening. So I grabbed my phone, I put my voice memo on, I flipped back the pages and I was like, anyway, somebody should. And I tell my husband the entire book. I think we added like 4 pages later and I just go on Google Slides and I write them all out. And it's kind of a crazy, wild story. Apparently in the illustration world, you're supposed to give 4 to 6 months for an artist. And as I was trying to get bids, they all were like, you put weeks. Did you have a typo? And I'm like, no, is there something? Cause like May is National Volunteer Month. This was March. I was like, we have to get this out for that. And I got a lot of rejection. And so I went to bed and the Holy Spirit was like, one more day. I want you to try for one more day. And I was like, okay, I'll feel like an idiot again. It's fine. I'll do this again. Yeah. And I found this company in Florida. On their website, their portfolio was a bunch of churches, coffee shops. You got the vibe that they love Jesus. And so I was like, met with them. They bid it at 1/3 of what everyone else had bid it at. And they said, give us 2 weeks. We got you. So my book came out that May. Are You a Forever Family? My children's book. But I say that because I said yes to pageantry because that's what I was called in that time to have my purpose be, the underlying purpose, right? How do I help people see these kids in a positive light? And then in turn, by working ahead, by learning new skills, I think the blessing of that was, Marcy, your heart was so like, you knew it. You knew what you were doing. And so now it is the right time for these words to come out.
Yeah. And I know what I'm trying to say, but it's not what I'm trying. The word, I usually say stuff and then fix it. So I'm gonna say it and then I'm gonna fix it.
Perfect.
So because it's not necessary when we hear God's timing, we think like children, kids, the job, the move. But I mean like everyday timing. Yes. Like I am learning. Well, I battle with anxiety, and that comes from everybody got family stuff. I know exactly where it comes from. I know exactly who it comes from. But in my daily life, like I have these seasons where I'm really good at it and I have seasons where I'm not. And like the Lord is just like, you have time for that, like create your schedule. You have time for that. And I hear God's timing, but not in the broad sense that we use, but like, how did he orchestrate a pageant to getting through school early, to writing a children's book in your bed, right? To finding someone to illustrate it in 2 weeks, to have it done in May. Like that's not how we see it. But I know when you're working in purpose, on purpose, those are the type of things that happen for you. Right.
And I think there's something to add to that though. Like for me, I think during that season, there was because I had heard that voice while I was trying, I heard that voice and I learned that voice. And I felt like I sought that voice. Like my morning, I would walk on the treadmill and it was like, I need to ask what's next. I need to go to that voice and ask. And then to find myself years later now this is hard, most nights to go to bed under my pillow like this and say, whatever you want tomorrow, I'll say yes. And it is so hard because I'm asked to do some really weird things. But I don't want to stop asking because I feel like if I don't know if you've heard this saying, I don't know if it's true. Okay. It's just kind of an interesting story that like, maybe you were God's like 15th choice.
No.
Because maybe the other people said no. Like, does God?
So I haven't had it said
it
that way.
I don't know. I don't know if he does. I don't know if that's true. Right. I mean, we know that like Jonah was supposed to go do something and God was pretty much on
adamant. Yeah.
So I don't know if that's true, but I guess for me, like if there's something I'm supposed to do, and if this is my last day on the earth, or if this is the only thing I'm ever asked to do ever again, I don't want to say no. I don't want to like regret or be passed up.
Yeah. I always say die empty, right? Like everything that God wanted me to pour out, I want to pour out. I don't want to have stuff that he was like, you were supposed to do this, 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 and this, you know? So I always say
speak in front of people and you were supposed to speak it.
But I do. That's not the problem. It's the speaking after people. I speak to the people. And then I want to go home. That's the
last part. He's like,
you have to talk to them, Jasmine. That's the part that I'm like, I don't want to do that. So yeah, that like dying empty is that. And that's so funny that you said like every day you're like, what does the next day bring? Because I used to ask that same question every morning. Like, God, if you only want me to do one thing today, like what is that thing? And let me tell you, when I stopped asking because it kept getting bigger and scarier. So it was taking me like 2 days
off the
to
ride?
do. I did. It was taking me like 2 days to do the one thing. And I was like, oh no, that's scary.
It's your face.
I was like, that's scary. I can't do that. I mean, I would do it, but it would take me longer and longer to do it. So I couldn't ask
some of the assignments, and that's some of the things that I work on now. Like I've got something I'm working on now for next spring. And then I have something else I'm working on now for next November. But it's like a process, right? So like when I wrote my children's book, it was like, oh, it came out of my mouth after years of waiting. And then, it came out like 2 months later.
Yeah.
But there's 2 books in my future. And the one has a very, very long runway. It's a graphic novel. And I've never written this. And I'm learning that it's like, okay, Marcy, the faith in this and your obedience in this is to do that next step that I showed you. Like, you're going to get all the way over here. It's going to be really far out there.
Yeah.
But like, you got to do this next thing because I've shown you. And I told my husband, I was like, I can't see past 2026. Like usually I can only see like 12 months out or 6 months out. And I usually like could see, but I was like, I don't know what my life has after 2026. And
the fact that you can see that is also very interesting. That's very interesting.
Yes. I just said yes. That's all I did.
This has inspired me. I'm about to,
but there's a lot of responsibility in that, right?
Yeah.
Like now that
definitely.
like I've written down, I know my big rocks, right? Like I know specifically because of school going to do my MBA in this untraditional format taught me like, okay, Marcy, you can do 2 or 3 things really well at a time. That's it. And like, so I was doing this research study last year while I was finishing my MBA. And then I was like, sorry, research team, I need to do this summer because these courses are really heavy. They were like these finance courses and like stuff I wasn't like very natural at. And I pushed it. But then in turn, I was able to work with my local community, leaders from like business sector, nonprofit sector. They volunteer to learn leadership skills. And 7 of them were like, hey, our give back project's going to be to learn how to be an interviewer for your research study, Marcy. And I'm like, I don't have to spend the time doing that. This is great. I just got to train you. So like just things come together, but I also have to learn. What I'm saying is in all of that, I have to learn to protect. Yes, Lord, I will do this that I see is down the road. But as a result, I clearly know what I cannot do. So that if there's someone else's idea, I'm going to have to say 2027, we can talk.
Yeah. I tell people no was just as holy as yes.
But I think we're taught,
but when you grow up especially the environment I grew up in a church that service is the way to show that you are faithful. And I'm breaking that. I'm breaking that off me. Like they get shocked because usually people call me and you're capable, right? When you're capable, people know Marcy will do it, Jasmine will do it. But now people call me and I say no, and they're like, what in the world? And I'm like, yeah, because that And not like you don't volunteer in children's ministry when no one's not there, right? Like,
Sure,
I'm not
sure.
saying that, but like the big things, giving 4 hours on a Sunday morning to help you feed snacks is not the same as committing to a whole project that I know will
Right.
derail, you know, the things that God has asked me to do. So no is just as
100%.
holy as yes. I need to post that again
Yes.
today so people remember. But yeah,
Yes.
I
Well, but
believe
like you're
that.
saying, I will say no to the things that will derail. And
Yeah.
that's the thing, is like knowing
Yeah.
what is that thing
Yeah. What
that
is
you
the
got to
thing?
protect.
And
Yeah.
and your thing. Okay, let me ask you some more questions because this is
Yeah.
good. So the next question is, how did you get to your journey? And can you tell me about that journey? But it doesn't really align with your definition. But let's just see how
It
you answer.
doesn't. It
Yes.
doesn't. I how to
Mm.
approach intentional. Okay, so here, okay, if I go with intentional as that
Okay,
journey,
cool.
I remember, so I became a Christian right before high school. So I didn't really like I grew up in like a sort of Catholic family, didn't really do all the ritual
Hail
stuff.
Marys and stuff. Okay.
Sure, but like we didn't really go to church all the time. I don't know. I didn't know enough to know enough. I really wanted a Bible. My sisters had one. There's like lots of things there. So long and short story, my 7th grade locker partner leads me to Christ because she moved to California, comes to Missouri where I'm at, leads me to Christ, leaves me with a youth group. I end up meeting my husband in this youth group, and she goes back to California. So there's that, like, for me, faith moment, this huge moment.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think for me, as you learn and you grow as a person, different things happen. And for me, the thing that comes to mind is I remember my first year in my undergraduate degree. And I remember living on campus, and you're socialized so differently, right? You're living with people. And I remember somebody gave me feedback about how, like, I'd ask a question, but I wouldn't wait for the answer, and how I should really work on that. Like, Marcy, you started a conversation, the person was talking, but you got distracted and you went over here, but this person doesn't feel listened to. And somehow in that season, trying to hear this in love, I thought, I need to get better at listening.
Mm-hmm.
I need to get better at listening. And so I spent my second semester, my first year in college, trying to get better at asking questions and trying to get better to just ask questions and to ask good questions. And I think for me, the intentionality of that, like if you took just that semester of school on, I think a lot of my intentionality came in that season, because when you ask and you just listen and you observe, and you don't even have to ask always with words, right? Like you can just be there. I think I learned so much about people in that scenario. And so it gives me a very different day. Like I think about my career, like I'm remote and with the people. And so there's this like spontaneity and like fun, and there's lots of culture and different people. But I feel like because I invested time in trying to listen and learn and being open to feedback, I think that helps me be intentional, right? That it's like, I intentionally can show up ready to like, so for instance, someone on my team was mentioning how excited they were about Amazon Prime Day. And today that was the day. And so like, to like, okay, before my workday even starts, I'm going to check in and see, did she get anything yet? You know? And so the whole team gets excited. And so it's just like, just fun ways to help people feel seen, I think is what I've really learned, is like, how can I do that? And I think that just all of that weaves into where I've been called with a ministry of like trying to help children that are overlooked, that aren't.
I was about to say that,
right? Like it's very woven, but I could go on and on and on about just these different scenarios of like, the analogy I'll give you is there's, in the state of Kentucky, there is the ARC experience, and you can go to like a life.
Oh, yeah.
Have you been to this?
No, but
okay.
I know.
Okay. You can pretend. So you go in this like real thing that's like legit built to the specs in the Bible. And there's different rooms, different floors. And there's a particular room. It's the life of Noah, who we all know built the ark, right? And we all know about the ark and the animals and the dove, right? Like those are kind of common Bible stories if you're a Christian. And what we don't know, so you walk in this room and it's this huge open wall that you walk through, like a big opening. And then there's 3 walls. And on the right side, you see Noah with his ark and all of his animals and his family. What you see on the left side and the back wall is all of the things that Noah did before that. Noah in his younger years on your left wall is Noah caring for animals. Noah on the wall in front of you is Noah building things. He's learning construction. Oh, look, Noah cares for animals on a boat he built.
Yeah.
And so to me, there's just so much there that would just our yes today and like doing that thing, whatever it was, like we're learning a skill that's we need it. We need to like put that in our tool belt.
Yeah.
So we're ready for whatever that next crazy thing is.
Yeah, and I, man, because I do believe, is that in the Bible? Do I need to look that up? Did Noah care for animals? But I do think,
yeah, it should be in the Bible because it's all based. Yeah, I'd have to like look it up.
Yeah, I need to Google that. But I think I know when you were talking and you were like learning to make people feel heard, I said, no, that, I mean, I'm going to ask you what you would say your purpose is, but that I believe is your purpose. Because when I'm telling you on that couch, I felt so hurt because everything else flows out of that. So in this stage of your life, right, it is foster care and caring for these people who are unheard. But in our conversation, because we were talking about like being one being, right? That happened in our conversation, texting about Amazon Prime, right? Like, because I know that my purpose is to feed God's sheep. And so that's physical. So I talk about health, and eating whatever, and that's spiritual. And that's wherever I go. And I wonder, I'm gonna ask you next in about 10 seconds, but I wonder if your purpose really is to make people feel heard or seen or seen. And I'm going to ask you so you could tell me, what is your purpose, Marcy?
I think there's many, right?
Okay, yeah.
I think there's many. I mean, there's just, to me, like if I pull out like other books like Strengths Finder and like these personality tests, and it's like, what are you good at, right? Like there's those like, oh, those are like, I'm connectedness, and so like I see it all together, right? I love, like, I'm very resourceful, like I'll learn the skill and like personal finance, then tell everyone like, hey, you just got married, you need life insurance, you got a kid, you need a will, like, you know, just being able to share those things. And so that might not align with what you just said about like,
no, that's
heard, right? But like bringing fun and spontaneity. And I don't know that I could tell you singly, like, oh, I know my whole purpose on the earth is this thing. I can tell you that, like, not to sound morbid in any way, but like when I shared earlier that like I can see through 2026, I told my husband, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to make it to 45. And he was like, don't say that. And I was like, but like, I don't know. Like, I was like, but I really have this like deep sense of like, I don't want to take today for granted.
Yeah.
And I think that's undergirding every part of how I live my life. Like,
I love that.
I don't want to regret it. Like when we even like weaving it into my own children. So my husband and I chose adoption through foster care as our plan A. And our kids were supposed to be with us for 4 months, and then like happily ever after, court date a couple months later. And we were 9 months in, which I do not think is an accident, which is that usually 9 months as a pregnant woman, you're preparing for a hospital visit, right? And I was on the floor in my bathroom. My kids are in bed and I am having a pity party. I'm crying. I'm, sobbing. My husband's down in our art studio. He's an art studio in our basement and he's just doing his thing. And I'm crying out to the Lord about how hard this is to go through this journey where we don't even know what the future is with our kids. And this was one of those times too. It was like, hey, Marcy. And I was like, yeah. This isn't about you. And I felt like someone like took a boot and hit me on the back. Cause I was like, that is not what I needed to hear in my pity party. Like, don't tell me this isn't about me. But like learning so much in that about like, but even though it feels like you're dealt poor cards, like what can you do with this? Like, why is there a delay, Marcy? Maybe that's not what, like, maybe you're focusing on the wrong thing. And that's what I started blogging. That blog is what then later evolved into me coaching people in my home how to do this. That then evolved into this book that I wrote during the pandemic and a podcast, all the things I'm doing. But it really just came out of like, can you find the silver lining? Can you find something good in it? And can you use what I've given you? This is like the Lord talk. Can you use what I've given you for good? Even if it feels like you don't have the right ingredients, like, can you at least do that? And at the same time, like during that season with our kids, there was a lot of, we're not entirely sure, Marcy, this is the child welfare system saying, we're not entirely sure if they're going to like stay with you because we placed them with you. We picked you out of 10 families. We called you their pre-adoptive home, but things have kind of changed a little bit. Now they might need to move back 5 hours across state because they should be with a more local family. And my husband and I were like, no, actually our employers are really great about this. So like, we'll just travel more. You tell us how often you want us across the state. And these kids who we're home number 7 for, they don't need to keep doing this. Like we will drive for them. you know, and I remember telling my husband at one point, like, this is just so grueling. Like, I don't know if I should love them or if I should like hold my love back. Cause like, I don't know what's going on. And like, I don't want to like be heartbroken. And then having the reality check of like, okay, but if I die in my sleep tonight and I'm the only other mom they've known or whatever, that I'm the person in their life right now that has the influence I have on their life right now, even if they move out, what do I want them to remember? And like knowing painfully, right, that I wanted to love them deeply and wholly, like all of them and with all of who I was, and recognizing that there was great risk in doing that they might not be with me forever, but choosing that I was like, but if I die tomorrow, I want to make sure they know what this feels like. Because I don't want to like be on the other side of this earth going, well, I could have like loved those kids, but like I don't want to get attached. And so like I didn't. And I think that really guides a lot about how I think through things. That it's like, if this is the last 5 minutes, I get to see this coworker or whoever, or my, you know, kids are leaving for school. Like if this is the last time, like, how do I want that interaction to go?
It's so good for me.
I just don't want regret. Like I don't.
Yeah, that is so. Yes. Yes. I'm processing everything you're saying because I'm like, no, that's real. Like intentionality. What you said at the beginning is like what I hear in throughout everything you say, like living with intention in the space that you're called in right now. Like, what does it look like to live in intention right here, right now? Oh, I love that.
And sometimes intention means like shielding my time and resting. Like it doesn't always mean showing up and being there. It doesn't, doing, not at all. Sometimes it's just like, okay, I can sense that this isn't the right time for this.
Yeah. But that also is a level of, you have a level of, I don't want to use the word discernment because that's not really what it is in the traditional
Maybe it's like
sense.
intuition.
Yeah. Like you have a level of intuition that I have not experienced before or seen in anyone before. Like people know, like I know things, right? I have discernment about people. I pretty much can read people really quickly. But like the fact that you are like, no, I know what 2025 looks like. I don't think I've ever met anyone that knows in that way, but that comes from being locked in and being intentional about today. And I am blown away.
But if we would have talked, so I have to caveat this in case someone's listening and they're like, but I don't see that. So let's pretend. So I literally, there was a fellowship that I was eyeing. So I'm in a fellowship. That's how you and I met. And I'm looking for further growth. So there was one that I was like on their email list and I got like, hey, we have an open thing for next year, apply. And I applied. I was really proud of myself for applying. And then they were supposed to resolve everything by this past week. And so it's like, I'll check my email. And I was like, I'm going to go look at what I submitted. Even though I like tried in the moment, everything felt right. I'm going to go critically look at why I wouldn't get picked. So I don't feel so let down if I'm not picked. Right. And I went in there because I was like, let me just be the judge. Let me be the grader, right? Like, because I'm like, there's like hundreds of people that apply for this. They narrow it down to like 200, then they narrow it down to 50, and then 12 get picked. So I was like, the likelihood of getting picked, like, come on, right? It's hard. It's hard. And then like, honestly, like if I had to pick, like I got this incredible thing. Pilot Pen gives me this amazing grant. It's fueling the work I get to do. Like that was once in a lifetime amazing. And I'm so grateful, right? So it's like, I like, it's amazing. So I look at my application and I looked through all the different pieces, and there was a particular part that said the project you want to fund. This particular fellowship gives you a $50,000 grant as part of it. And I looked through it, and there was absolutely no clarity on the project I was asking for. And I can tell you that in the moment, I didn't know what the project was, but I knew the kind of work that I do, but I didn't know for certain what I was being called to do next. And so I looked at it and I thought that's going to be the thing. That's very, and I was like, unless somebody didn't grade it and like I somehow made it, I can clarify for round 2. I get the email on Monday and I didn't get it. And part of me is like, you know what's cool? I don't have to put the effort in for the next month to figure out how to compel them for phase 2.
Right. But
and other donations have come in from other ways for me. So like, it's not inhibiting me, but I say all of that because I think if you and I would have talked then and you would have said, so what's your vision? I would have said, I'm not sure yet. I don't know what's next yet. I have a couple things in the works. I don't know. Like there's a few things I'm praying through, but I think that the timing of when we're talking, I've gotten more clarity on that. And I honestly think had I not gone through that application process, I wouldn't be able to tell you clearly that I can see it, because I now know and see. Does that make sense?
No, that makes a lot of sense, and that's helpful to the listener. It's helpful to me too. No, but that's really helpful because I do know that people that listen are usually looking for encouragement, are looking for their purpose, are in that like what is purpose type thing. And that's why I asked the story and the journey, because when they're listening, they can know, oh, they didn't just show up here. Right? Like, so the Marcy that we see today, how long ago was this? 2 years? A year? I don't know.
This particular, what are you thinking of?
The grant that you didn't get?
No, that was like Monday. Like we're talking a couple days ago. I got rejected, like, and this is Tuesday. This is yesterday.
Oh, well, okay.
So I applied for it like 2 months ago. Let's say it was back.
Okay.
2 months. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
so you see what I'm saying? Like it's all so relative.
Yeah. That's
and
even
who
more
knows? Like
encouraging.
6 months from now, I could be like, hey, I'm still doing this, but this part pivoted.
Yeah.
And we've moved it. Or it's just I do not know enough about how the Spirit leads. All I know is how to listen. And sometimes it's quiet. And sometimes I'm like, am I doing this right? And I'm like, I remember somebody telling me a long time ago that when you don't hear and you don't know what to do, the best thing to do is to know what the Bible just tells you to do. And that's like to do the works of the Bible, like to just keep living your life like that. And eventually the voice will come back.
And that's
so
what I was
there are
going to
periods.
ask you. Like, what does it look like when it is silent for you? So you just do, not just, that's a big deal. You do the works of the word. That's interesting. I had a pastor who said, when you aren't hearing, one of his theories, I don't think this is the theory, but one of his theories is you need to go back to what he told you to do last. And
I've heard that before too.
Make sure you did that. And I do believe that there are desert seasons and dry seasons where God is just not speaking, and that's okay. But there also are times where he's like, but what about that thing that I told you to do that you haven't done? So, okay,
I think that's true sometimes. But I think for me, there's two things. One, I have like a stack of white index cards that I've hole punched and have a little coil on that are verses that have spoken to me at some time. And I have written them out in like in a thin Sharpie. And I don't read them every day, but there are seasons where I know that there's like, maybe it's only just one. I'm just reading every day for a while. But those, I'm like reminding myself that something in my past made me write that down, and maybe it's even reminding me of what that season was or why I wrote it down, but I need to read that again. Or maybe this isn't one that's resonating. I'll flip through, but I'm like, this feels like my own tailored version of reminding me about something that I connected with. The other thing that I do, I got taught this a few years back, and people might be familiar with having like a power statement. It kind of comes out of the idea of having a New Year's resolution, but I tend to like take ideas and spend them. So what I do, when I first learned this concept, so it's supposed to be like over the course of this year, and it was like October, and I had accomplished all of the things on my list.
I love that.
And so I was like,
yeah.
And I just gave myself permission that I would just have a living document. So as I felt like things I needed to add, I would add, or remove, I would remove. And that would be my current power statement. So I have like a Google Doc, I date the bottom, like with like month and year, and I print it. And for several years, it would just be like in my bathroom, I'd be getting ready in the morning and I'd read it to myself. And there's a lot of encouragement around like, say it out loud. But then I got really efficient in it. And I thought, well, I don't mind like reading with my eyes, but sometimes that just feels like it takes a long time. Like it's time. And not that that really matters, but it just wasn't resonating. So I got back out my voice memo and my phone, and I record it. I record myself saying my power statement.
Oh, I love that.
So now when I'm like driving to the gym or whatever, I can play it. And I think for me, when there are those quiet days, weeks, whatever, I'm listening to what I know I'm called to do. Because mine starts with the Bible verse. And then I say, like, help me steward these things. And then in chronological order, there's things like I had just published a course on Udemy around self-publishing a book. And so it was like, by this month, I will be having, this will be done. By this month, this will be done. And sometimes I have to like erase that, because I'll be like, okay, I'm going to go speak at this place, and then I don't get picked. So I just remove it. But I'm like, it was so good to think through that. there's nothing wrong that it didn't come to fruition. I put my name. You can't get stuff you don't ask, raise your hand or apply to. And so that's what I'm constantly doing is, okay, this is what I know I need to do. And I think honestly, by hearing it, and this is the big goal, it often is like, something I could do today for like 5 minutes is just email that person or ask that person or Google that thing. And it moves that thing forward without me actually having to go through the long, arduous process of making like a 17-page plan, right? It's like, I'm just hearing myself remind me of what I'm called to do next.
Yeah, I'm going to steal that and give it to my clients. I'm going to say your name. I always give credit of where I got it from.
Do it.
But I do tell them.
Hard.
Yeah.
To like edit it. Yeah.
Yeah. But I also tell them do one thing a day. So for you, like even because that's what I always say, like, just send the email. Yes. Do the Google search today. And I know listening to it makes it be in your subconscious. So you're easier to do the Google search. It's easier for you to send the email. It's easier for you to bring it up in conversation. I also encourage them to bring up their ideas in conversation, in safe conversations, obviously.
Yes.
Don't give your idea to a stranger.
Right.
But like bring up your ideas in safe conversation. And you're doing that in a different way, right? The safe conversation with yourself, but it makes you, I just say it makes things more real.
It does.
Because I work with people who have had dreams, goals, ideas for years, right? Like when I say years, my mom, I'm 34. I remember my mom talking about being in a PhD program when I was in 3rd grade. She just completed her last year. So she'll be entering her 2nd year, right? So like, these are the type of people I work with, which I mean, it's a good time for her. So I get it, God's timing, blah, blah, blah. But these are the type of people I work with, and they don't talk about it because it's been in their heart for 20 odd years, right? And I'm like, no, you have to get it out. You have to say it. You have conversations, hard conversations make things real, like you have to have the hard conversations. So I love that. I'm gonna give you credit, but I'm using that because that is
do it. Well, and I think so. To me, the hard part is like I write it, I record it, and those are like they don't take that long. I mean, like you just modify. It's like in a template by now, so it's like okay, I spent 10 minutes editing it. Because then I'll hear myself and I'm like, wait a minute, Marcy, that's not true anymore. Or this needs to be added. And so then becomes the system of, okay, I got to go edit it, print it, takes a few minutes, but now I have to go record it. And I've gotten to the point that I don't care if it's correct. So when I'm recording it and I stutter, I'm like, it doesn't matter. I'm the only one listening to this thing. So I'll just do it. A little dog's barking in the background. I'm like, nobody else is listening to this thing but me. Like this doesn't actually matter. It's just for me to remind me who I am. Like it's okay. So if hopefully it helps someone too, but it's like, it's not about perfection at all.
I love that. And like reminding me of who I am.
Yes.
That's big. Because so many people don't know who they are. And if that's you, that's okay. We can work together. Contact me. And 2, when you know who you are, like me, like I shared at the beginning, you can know who you are and not fully accept that person.
Right.
And then there's like the 3rd person who knows who they are and accepts that person. And I think these stages are like, they're just stages and you have to work through it. And it's a choice to get from one stage to the next. Because you can get stuck in one and not move. But the reminder of this is who I am, like I told you, the Lord told me to feed his sheep, right? And that is like not a new revelation, but something God tells you something, then sometimes you don't remember, then he bring it back years later, like remember I told you that years ago? That's one of those things. And now it doesn't leave me. So when people ask me, I'm like, all I'm supposed to do is feed Jesus. Like that, like, so like that's all I'm supposed to do on this earth. Feed God's sheep through proper nutrition and spiritual nutrition. Like that's what I'm supposed to do. And that helps you get through your days. Like, did I do that today? Like,
and I think so much of it though, like, and I don't know if this has been your experience. For me, I have gotten more because I hired a coach to help me get a remote job. Mentech. I got called back to the office and I was like, this is not gelling with me anymore. Like I really loved the pandemic version of this. And her first step was getting clarity. And I was like, I hate this. Like, I absolutely hate this because I feel like I'm not like a single thing. And she was able to help me realize I don't have to be a single thing. Like I was searching multiple things, but it was so important to get clear. And you hear that all the time. And I like kind of hate it. Right. But I think there's something to just, well, if I couldn't commit fully clearly on all of the details, what I could do is do the next thing and sort of kind of understand myself and write that down. And then over time, when you're reading it or seeing it again or hearing yourself say it, to me, you can iterate, and it's okay to change the language that you're using. Like, I don't know if you would maybe have said a few years ago, I'm supposed to shepherd the sheep. It might have come out a little bit different, right? Like,
Oh yeah.
it might be different words. And I think sometimes as humans, we can be so paralyzed in our minds, or nervous or embarrassed, or insert whatever, I'm not qualified, doubtful, whatever it is. And so we never even do it or say it or believe it or write it down, right? Because we don't understand how to do it. And it's like, it doesn't matter to understand. It just matters to like believe that you can do it. And that's what I have found. Like, okay, I know I'm supposed to do this. And so for instance, like in this graphic novel space, I've never written a story like this in my life. Everything else I've written has been prescriptive nonfiction, meaning like it's like instructions. I can teach you how to do things. This is not that at all. But I hear from a friend who's taking a Udemy course, and I was like, I should look good. Maybe there's like one on how to do this. So I took this like incredible course, really affordable, did it on an airplane of all things. It didn't take that long, kind of got started. And so like, I'm piecing my way there. I'm telling other people that are trusted in my circles that hey, I'm looking for this and I'm looking for that. Can you teach me this? I talked to one of my mentors about a story concept that I thought was brilliant. And then she was like, Marcy, don't do it that way. And I was like, do tell why. But I loved that, right? Because as someone trusted, she was like, I love where your heart is. And I want you to hear how that's not the way to tell this story. But I'm like, I'm so grateful, right? Like, I don't ever want to go out with this and have it be offensive, or me to like not understand that, like, I didn't think about, this other perspective in it. And so I think there's a bit of trust in that though, right? Like, you can't just, like you said, you don't want to just tell anyone the idea. You got to find the people. And like, I had a friend recently reach out, and I loved this. She had emailed and said, I love being around your energy and I'm having a really hard day. Do you have time today or tomorrow? I would just love to spend time with you. We can talk about the thing that I've been helping you with. And I was like, she doesn't need, no, we're not doing productivity. Like, she needs to just talk.
Yeah.
But when I got on the phone with her yesterday, we talked about how she did that for like a half dozen friends, and everyone was like eager to help. And I thought, what a great, humble thing to do in our moments where we don't feel confident or we had kind of a crappy day, to just reach out to the people that we love being with and saying, hi, I'm in a time of need.
Help me.
I was like, I want to use that strategy next time. Like, that was brilliant. That was brilliant.
And I think you hit on something else that I tell people to do. When you ask for help, be clear and concise. And that's what your friend did, right? Like, and I get, and it's also very funny because I thought that like singular things are not your thing. So when you said that, I was like, yeah, she's not singular. She's like
not.
all of it, which is cool.
But it's hard though when you're asked to singular, and I'm like, but I don't know how to singular.
Yeah, but there are people who are very singular, and it's like, this is what they do, and they do it well. And I admire those people because I also am not singular, right? Like, I am everywhere. But I wanted to speak to like that clear and concise part. Like, even when you're pursuing purpose, whether you know what that purpose is or not, and you're asking for help, I always tell people exactly what you need from them. Because when you go in and you're like you may just be like, I have this idea, I don't know, whatever, can you spend 30 minutes brainstorming with me? That way everyone knows, like, okay, we don't have to have a conclusion. We don't have, like, it just sets parameters, and you get to be free amongst those parameters. And there's
but I think what's hard though is sometimes we don't know what we need in those moments. And because so it's like an approach, and this just for listener benefit, because I think this can help anyone. So I have this strategy, especially at like my work life, where like I'll need something from someone or them to answer, and like it could just be crickets, right? Like chat messages can be crickets. So I don't like not getting a response. So what I've started doing is I'll insert like ABCD. So it's like, hey, I wanted to check in on this thing. And then I'll say, A, yep, Marcy, good to go. B, nope, not ready yet. C, ask tomorrow. And then I'll throw something in like, D, go order me some chicken. Like, there's something funny, right? And I always get a response. And it's like the best thing ever. And I've learned in my mind to think about asking people to help in the same way. Well, what could I ask them to help me with? Well, come up with your own A, B, C, D, or A, B, whatever. It doesn't have to be 4 things. And well, I could ask them for 30 minutes to brainstorm, or I could ask them to give feedback on what I have, or I could just tell them I need to be told I'm not crazy, right? Like there,
Mhm.
and then you have choice, like pick one of those and just ask the friend or ask the person, right? Like I think sometimes I can get stuck as well. I'm like, I don't actually know what I need in this space. I just know I have an idea and I don't know how to mobilize it. So what do I
Yeah.
do? What do I do?
Yeah. That's good too. Because I think it's a journey.
It
It's a
is.
journey, and you don't know where you're going to end, and you don't, and I think that for me, that's the beauty. For a lot of people, that's not the beauty. They want to know exactly what they're doing tomorrow. But for me, I am more fluid, and I can go up to somebody and say, I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
but I do know that, like, I will share what I do know. I'm clear and concise what I do know. And I
Sure.
say it just like that, like, I don't really know, but this is what I do know.
Uh-huh.
And kind of let them fill in the gaps. I actually have a meeting Thursday like that. I'm like, I don't know what we're gonna talk about, but tell me what you're doing. Like that's what I basically like said in the email. Like, I don't really know what I need. I'm looking at all ideas. It's the anyway. So yeah, that is that's I like this. I like this. I like this. I like this.
This is fun. I love it. I'm like, please don't let the time pass. This is just so great.
No,
Like
it
sitting
really
on the
is
couch again.
great. But we are gonna gonna wrap up, and I want to like kind of do a review of the things you talked about, because you talked about a lot of good things. And I rarely do this on the episode, but like I really want to go back and highlight the things that you said because they're important, and the things that I want to highlight, and you can add whatever you want to highlight. Is for you, it's about being intentional in what you're called to do in that moment.
Yep. Or that day,
Or
or that
that
hour, or that season. Yeah.
Yeah, and also I picked up on like the timing being worked out for you, because I think there's a lot of anxiety surrounding how old I am, the year's almost over, whatever blank you want to. My mom died, so she didn't get to see me, whatever time parameter
Yeah.
makes sense for you. But hearing you say, like, you didn't say this, and you can correct me, but I feel like it's kind of like it, as long as you're intentional, the
Yeah.
timing will work out.
Right, right. I didn't say that part right, but if to give credit, I think I learned to think that way. There's two women in my life that have changed my thinking. One of them, when I was first writing, her name is Keely, she's on my board. I I had an idea of the book, but I needed to make a website because authors have websites. And I was like, Keely, and she gave me her, like, she mentored me. It was wonderful. We used to work together. We had to meet like almost every week. And it was like, I don't know. I need to have a website. And I just went to her with like, bleh, like I need to have a website. And she was like, oh, I can help you with that. And she said, it was like a 10-minute conversation. Like, you need an about menu, you should do this. And she went menu by menu by menu by menu. It was like, these are the things. And she was like looking at some other author's website, telling me all the stuff. And I was like, that's all I have to do. She's like, yeah. And I'm like, I can go on the back end of this website because, you get all of these great content management systems that are so easy peasy. So I threw my website together simply because I went to Keely and said, I need to do this and I don't know where to get started. And she just like, she's so decisive. And I'll go to her, and this is why I love her on my board. I'll go and I'll say, hey, I'm stuck. I'm thinking to go A, B, or C. I can't decide. And she'll pick one for me and she'll tell me why. And then I can argue. But usually she picks the thing that I'm like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. And it's like, anytime I'm stuck, I go to Keely.
Okay.
Because I know that I can get stuck up here.
Yeah.
And overanalyze. So that's one woman I want to give credit to. There's also another coworker I used to work with. Her name is Deep D. And when I talked to Deep D about pageantry, I've been offered to go to nationals, and it was like, but your state is taken. There are a few states you can still interview for, so forth. And it was things like Hawaii. And I'm like, I don't feel Hawaiian. Like, I can't do this. And Ohio was on the list. And I went to Deep D and told her how crazy this sounded. And I made the mistake of telling Deep D how crazy it sounded, because as a good friend, and I was really upset at how she did this initially. She said, I need you to tell me how you're going to make this work. And I was like, excuse me? And she was like, we're not talking again until you tell me how you're going to make this work. And I got off that Zoom and I was mad. Because I in my head, I wanted her to say, that's Marcy, of course you're not going to do it. This makes no sense. But instead, she saw the opportunity and said, you need to go figure this out, because you can. You just have to figure it out. And I think that's changed my thinking a lot, that it's like, instead of having the excuse of timing or I've never done it, or I'm uncomfortable, or I can't do that. It's like, well, then just find a way. Like you have to find a way that you, and even if it's not, maybe I can't get it done as fast as I want, or I need to move the timeline, like I mentioned in my research study, I can still figure out how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just want to give credit, like they're in my brain, and I've had to work through. I mean, that's like truth and love, right? Like I love you enough to help you not overlook an opportunity, Marcy.
Right. And especially because you're so intentional, if I were your friend, which we're going to be friends after this, if I were your friend,
you're invited.
Thank you. If I were your friend, I would know that you were bringing it up for a reason.
Yeah.
Because of what I know about you.
Things like that. You do not want to hear things like that, though. I don't want to hear things like that.
Yeah, but I would know, like in my head, it's like, this is not a fleeting, you don't have fleeting thoughts, right? Your thoughts even have purpose with the way you lead your life. So if you brought something up to me, I'd be like, I'm that friend to everybody else. So I would be like, but when are you going to do it? Like, I would just keep asking you like, okay, I hear you, but when are you going to do it? Because I know that your thoughts even have like, yeah. And one of my friends' mom, she used the term silly women. Like, don't be caught up with those silly women. Like, whatever the opposite of that is what you are, right? Like, there are people that I talk to, I'm like, they're just talking. Like, they have an idea a day and none of them coincide and they'll never pursue any of them, but you're not that type of person. So yeah, I commend your friends because I would be the same way with you. Like, no, you have a thought for a reason. So tell me what you need for me to help you. Like, that would be my response to you. Like, okay, well, tell me when to donate or, tell me how to, whatever. Because of, especially just from this one conversation, like the pattern has been like, I had a thought, I pursued it. I had a thought, I pursued it. I had a thought, I pursued it.
Well, it's kind of, I had a thought, I confided in someone. I luckily wasn't on the screen when I heard, I think some of it just, I had a thought and I try to do a little thing to probe the thought. Like I could go Google and I could do something to validate that I shouldn't do it. That's what I've been doing the whole time. Is like, I went to the friend to validate. Yes, to validate that I could dismiss it. Like that's what I was looking for. When I went to Google, I was trying to validate.
Surprising.
Are you kidding me?
Yes. I mean, no, I'm not kidding you. I'm very shocked.
I was like, I'll go Google it to prove to you this is not a line. And I think like I hope that what your listeners are hearing in that is like, that's not wrong in any way.
Oh no.
Because I have learned so much about myself by allowing myself to like mentally try things on and mentally test it. Like, is this really what I'm supposed to do? Like not getting this fellowship, I could be in a total tailspin. Like, oh, I feel so rejected, but I'm not, because I allowed myself before I knew I'd hear from them to critically try on getting it and not getting it. Right. And like being okay. And I think a lot of that just comes with, that's how everything's been. I mean, when I went to nationals, Marcy, you need to be okay winning the crown and not winning the crown. Okay.
Be content in all things.
Yeah. But like being ready to react to both of those sincerely in my heart, I think that's where I really try to be really careful. Is I genuinely want to be present in those moments, right? Like before my husband ever proposed, we knew we were getting married. He had never, like, it was leading me on for like weeks and months. And I remember thinking, this waiting is really hard. And then I got to a point of like, well, what can I do while I wait? I can think about what I want to say. That's what I can focus on. I can focus on, how do I want to answer? Do I want to be yes? Or do I want to do something a little more creative? And so I got into like, well, what can I say? And I was like, I can say I'm honored to. And so eventually he asked, and I was ready because I had tried on that. I was like, I want to be ready in that moment and not mad that I had to wait, but excited that I thought through during the waiting. Uh-oh, what?
No,
what's going on?
Nothing. I'm processing what you're saying and I'm still sticking to what I said. That's why I'm like, she did all this explaining, but I'm still there. All right.
I still honestly tell sometimes these crazy ideas. I don't know, like sometimes it iterates, right? Like this graphic novel, it's iterating the topic. And sometimes it's like, Huh. Okay. Cause like I can't say yes to everything. Like, I
Right.
mean, I don't want to overwhelm myself because it's like I realize that the momentum of things, like I'm very cognizant of that as I think
Mhm.
through my day and my life. And it's like there are times where like I've done more travel in the current year than I've ever probably done in my life. And
Mhm.
they're to me, they're each a mission trip. Like I'm just like, hey guys, you're sending me there. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go. You said to
Mhm.
go. But I'll realize, like I did a presentation to the elementary school teachers in my state to kick off my reading program this year.
Mhm.
And it was a very, late night. There were a lot of details that changed last minute. My co-presenter teacher got the flu of all things. And I was in the shower thinking, okay, God, like, how can we fix this? And it was okay. I could ask the other teacher at school. We'll just see. And the other teacher at school was able to organize everything to like drive across state with me and help present. It was just this amazing thing. But then I found myself up late at this hotel, finished
Mhm.
because I got to see the space. But it was like, I am 100% okay knowing that sometimes my pace or how I stretch myself looks different. Like for that trip, I knew this wasn't about sleep, right?
Right.
This wasn't like I'm gonna feel rested tomorrow. This was I want to nail it and get it right, get sleep, but it's more about I need to put in the energy and effort because this is a mission trip. Like for me,
Right.
this I'm there for a purpose. So I just say all of that because I think if you and I talk on any given day, right, that day might be, this is a day where I'm resting. This is a
Mhm.
day where I'm actually going to extend my bedtime because I want to move this thing forward,
Yeah. But I'm going to stick to what I said again because even in that, it's still intentional, right?
It is. It is.
Going into the trip that I'm not sleeping. There
Yeah.
are people that I always say let life happen to them,
Mm.
right? And they're not intentional with their lives. It's just
Mhm.
like they're reacting, always reacting. So they'll get home. I'm like you though. Like I know, hey, for the next week, you're going to be drinking Celsius. And
Mhm.
then, and you'll be fine after that, right?
Mhm.
But a
Mhm.
lot of people don't live in that space. And
Mm.
that again, you had a thought and I want to nail it. And that means A, B, C, and D. And then it
Mhm.
happens.
Mhm.
And I don't want you to discredit that anymore. Okay. So
You don't want me to discredit that I'm intentional? I guess I was just telling you that
no,
sometimes.
not
Which
that you're
part? Which part?
intentional,
Which part?
that like your thoughts are intentional. Because I think that your actions are intentional,
Oh, okay. I'm hearing you now. I'm hearing
but
you
like, yeah, but
now.
that your
Okay.
thoughts are also intentional.
They're aligned.
Like, yeah, like, because it obviously, like, you've shown us that I'm telling you, Marcy,
Thanks for
like,
calling it what it is. Okay.
yeah, like,
I will get off of here and go think about that and my
okay,
intentional thoughts.
great. Yeah, like, I think
I'll
your
be intentional
thoughts,
to think about it.
yeah, thank you. I think your thoughts are intentional as well. Like, you and even with the graphic novel, right? Or with the children's book. So you use it, let's use a children's book because I think that's a better example. It was a thought years ago, but that doesn't mean it was no less an intentional thought, right? And back to the listener, like just because something's been on your plate for years doesn't mean that it's not going to happen or that it shouldn't happen. So yeah, it was an intentional thought years ago, and you happen to have time after a pageant, right, to get it done, but it was still an intentional thought that turned into action. So,
And
okay.
I found out to your point, and thank you for saying that and reminding me and helping me hear you, because I
Mhm.
think, yeah, thank you. I
Mhm.
think what's been interesting, if I flash back to like that particular topic of like the earlier years when I thought about the book to now when it's like, oh, I did that. And
Mhm.
I think so much of like even what I see in the next couple of years with these two other books that are in the queue, I think I see that as that if that what myself back then when I had the idea for the children's book that it wasn't quite coming together, I couldn't have handled this next idea because I hadn't ever executed. And it's not that I was
Mm.
in the wrong time by any means, but I had to go through like each of the assignments, like to your point, I was being given. I needed
Mhm.
to walk through on what I heard, as crazy, as weird, as shifting of, like I took off work to go to Vegas and hauled a bunch of clothes and, just did stuff
Yeah.
I'd never done before. But it was like, but that was what I was called to do in that season. And so
Right.
I think when we say yes and we're able to do whatever that means, or at least be willing to try, I think we learn things that then get us ready, like you said, for those things that we maybe put away because they're too scary and big, because we ready for them.
And one of the things that I've learned, and you spoke to this, but I want to say explicitly, is that I don't know if you spoke to this during the podcast or during our talk before the podcast. Well, I'm gonna speak to this. That when it is purposeful and intentional, the people come together, right? Like you don't have to. I don't hear struggle in your story. I hear like questioning, like how and maybe whatever, but I don't hear that you fought for anything. I don't hear like you Googled the
I
pageant.
think I fought myself, right? I fought the discomfort.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
That's it. But I think, and then that goes back to exactly what you said. Like anytime I tried to push it, like Deepti, tell me not to do this, I heard what I needed to do next.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think my struggle was just what just happened with you is receiving it.
Yeah.
Receiving it.
Yeah. Oh, I love this. This is so good. Yeah, I want the listener to hear that part of your story though, right? Like, so the struggle was with you, but it was orchestrated. And you don't have to, you don't really have to fight when it comes to purpose. I just believe that things go into place. And the meetings will happen and the people will volunteer and you will win some grants and you won't, like, because I often tell myself things like, you don't know what was on the other side of that fellowship, right? What time commitment would have taken from that? Like I applied
I can tell you right now that as soon as they said no, I was able to go to a group that asked me to be their keynote speaker. And they had asked me previously, these are the dates we're thinking. And I said, okay, those are fine, but this one's not.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I can give them complete freedom. And to me, it was like, that's where I meant to be because I need to bring my voice somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. And I applied for a grant to go to a conference and I didn't get it, which is fine. But immediately I was like, okay, what should I be doing with that time? Right. And I remembered some of the prayers that I prayed. And I don't, faith is the substance of the things not seen. I ain't seen it. But I do remember like, oh, if I'm there, then I can't do this, and being okay, like you said, with either way. And I'm want people to hear that you have to be okay with either way, because I do believe what's meant for you comes to you as long as you are I use the word diligent. As long as you are diligent, I do believe that. If you are diligent, and now I'm gonna start using intentional, what is meant for you will come. It's not like what is meant for you when you sit on a porch swing and you watch the cars drive by. But if you are diligent, I do believe that those things come to you.
My pastor says that God cannot move a parked car.
Yeah.
And I really, it took me a bit to like hear what he said, that it was like, you can move the car and still be wrong and God will move it. Like he will get you. But if you just sit still,
right,
he can't help you.
Right. I said that's not what I used. I don't remember what I said to somebody one day. I was like, oh, that's good. I think I said God can move, but you have to be moving or something like that. I said, and I was like, you surprise yourself. But yeah, it's the same thing, right? Like I said, God can't direct your path if you're not moving. That's what I said. I'm gonna write that down too so I can remember. But yeah, like there's no path to direct. There's no car to move. Right. Because you're not moving. And I'm moving. Yeah. But anyway, Marcy, that's good. Such a good episode. Okay, so my last question always is, if people get nothing else from this podcast episode, what do you want them to leave here with?
Knowing that it's okay to not know. Like there's nothing wrong with you if you listen to this whole thing and you're thinking, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know how to do it. I don't even have any idea to where to get started. I don't have a this. Like, it's okay.
I love that. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. And that's really good. Because these type of podcasts, I don't want to go on a tangent. We are going to end like a preacher that has 4 closings. But I do think when people listen to these podcasts, this pressure comes on, and I love relieving that pressure for people. So thank you for relieving that pressure for our listeners today. I appreciate that. And this is today's episode of the Purpose Podcast of Dr. Jazz, where we journey to purpose together. And thank you for Marcy for being here.
Loved it. This was so good.
It was. And we'll talk to y'all next week. Bye.
I've been thinking, how do the laws get found when they don't know where to go? And I've been shaking, not many more twists and turns before I find the road. And I've been hoping for sunrise.